Take a look at this. This is the financial bill that was presented in the parliament in the 1970s. But if you look through it closely, you'll find something really weird is going on. Come with me, I'll show you what was happening.
We in India today pay taxes like England to get services like Somalia.
ये है टैक्स सिस्टम.
Imagine that you were earning 6,000 rupees back in the 70s. According to the 1970 bill, you would be paying 100 rupees in taxes, which is hardly 1% of your income. And you can see that it does not move the scale at all. But now, as you start earning more, 10,000 rupees, 15,000, 20,000, you also start paying more in taxes, and you can see that the needle is slowly moving, but it's still inclined to the income side of the scale because the taxes are still less than 10%. But now look what happens when your income reaches 50,000. You are now paying 20,000 of your money in just taxes, which is 40% of your income. But now for an income of 1 lakh rupees, you are paying 60,000 of it in just taxes, which is more than half of what you're earning. And by the time you're earning more than 2 lakh rupees, you are going to be paying 93% of your income in plain taxes. 93% of your income gone in taxes. That is crazy. And this might sound strange to you, but that was the reality of the tax burden that people in India were facing back then. But why would any government tax its people so much? The answer is, it's early 70s and Indira Gandhi started a socialist movement. She called it Garibi Hatao, Desh Bachao, and it was a war on poverty. But the way this movement worked was on the concept of taxing the rich, a socialist approach that was supposed to bring equality of income and wealth in the country. Now, taxing the rich is still a debatable topic when it comes to our taxation policies, and I do want to explore why Indira Gandhi followed it. But I'm rather more stuck on this one man. This was Nani Palkiwala, who was a prominent Indian lawyer and jurist, and from the very start, he knew that Indira Gandhi's socialist ideology was not going to work right.
Socialism was born in Europe and it has almost died in Europe. There is not a country in the world today which follows the type of socialism which we do. What damage it has done to this country's economy. And still, I'm sorry to find in the budget, again a reference to our socialism.
Palkiwala was popular for his post-budget speeches, where for 30 years he delivered public lectures breaking down and critically analyzing the union budget. And lakhs of people would fill up stadiums to attend his lectures, including lawyers, businessmen and industrialists. If you look, you can see D.Y. Chandrachud over there, who's the former Chief Justice of India, also attending one of his lectures. But the reason all these people attended the lectures is because the Indian taxation policies were adding layers upon layers of complications every single year. If you look at this is the Income Tax Act of 1961, and this act has been rewritten 65 times in the last 64 years. I've actually printed out the entire thing, and this has more than 800 sections containing tax policies with multiple loopholes. And so, these people would need Palkiwala to break it down to them and understand how the policies will affect them in the future, because these policies were too complex to understand. And the truth is, they still are. Earlier this month, the Income Tax Act of 1961 was completely replaced by a new one with the hope that it will redo the damage of decades of mess and finally simplify the tax structure a bit. That is why I'm making this video. I want to know, how did we get here? How did India's tax structure get so complicated when there have been experts like Palkiwala constantly screaming that things are not going to work this way? And I guess what I really want to know is, what will have to happen for the tax system to actually start working for the people it's supposed to serve?
If you didn't know before,
Angin Gatram, Naine Vaktam, Nyayen Rajyam, tax system.
Okay, so before we begin, I have a confession to make. I don't really understand how taxes actually work. I keep hearing these debates, but I don't know what to make out of it. Are these tax rates justifiable? Am I paying more tax than I should be? I don't even know what all am I paying my taxes on. And you know what? I thought maybe that's a good starting point. What am I paying my taxes on? Come with me, let's find out. Okay, what do we have here? All of these gadgets, the phone, AC remote, my laptop, it's dead. Even the camera that I'm shooting with, all of this makeup, all of this we're paying taxes on. Diet Coke. Why Diet Coke? You know, we pay 40% tax on Diet Coke. Do we pay taxes on Theo? No, just kidding. Almost everything I have here, I pay taxes on. Okay, so this is all the stuff I bought last week. This is all the expensive stuff I bought last year. And these are my earnings, savings, and investments. Every single thing I have here is something I have paid taxes on. When I put it all here, it's a bit confusing. Like, why am I paying 18% on this and 40% on this? But when I sort it out a little, you can see now that this is the stuff I paid direct taxes on, and here is the stuff I paid indirect taxes on. So direct taxes are the taxes that the government takes from you directly on the income or wealth that you possess. How much you pay depends on what tax slab you fall into. But your income isn't the only earning that gets taxed. The government also taxes you on the profit you make on any investment from your already taxed income, and that is called capital gains tax. If you invest in mutual funds, stocks, gold, land, or crypto and book any profit, the government will take a portion of that profit. A lot of economists have a big problem with this logic, because why are you taking away the ability of people to save and invest, which anyways will help them spend that money and eventually pay more taxes indirectly? Capital gains on long-term investments were reintroduced in 2017. And while people were still wrapping their heads around all of this, 2 years later, something entirely different happened that sparked a whole new debate.
So after a very long time in India's history, the personal income tax collection was more than the corporate income tax collection. यानी कि maximum tax आपको individuals के income tax से मिल रहा है.
So, corporate tax. Just like individuals pay personal income tax, businesses pay corporate tax on their profits. And earlier, it was what the government used to generate most of its revenue from. But in 2019, the government suddenly slashed corporate tax rates for both existing and new companies.
Companies shall not be required to pay any minimum alternative tax.
And this resulted in individuals like you and me carrying majority of the direct tax burden, which by the way is 54%, while corporate tax contribution is at 46%. And that is when people started questioning if the income tax rates are even justifiable.
जो मिडिल क्लास है, जो टैक्स पेयर है ना, वो चैरिटी कर रहा है देश में, उसको कोई बेनिफिट नहीं मिल रहा.
Why is it that the common man is bearing most of the tax burden when it should have been the bigger corporations instead? Now, regardless of what argument is correct, personally, paying income tax for these rates is still fine by me. You earn more, you provide more, which is progressive taxation, and that is how you will get fairness in the country. But it starts to hurt when you realize that most of the Indians do not even pay income tax at all. If you compare it with the US, the percentage of people who pay federal income tax there is about 50%. And we in India are just at about 3%. Only 3%. But why is that? The answer is India has a narrow tax-based problem. Majority of India's workforce is either in the agriculture or the informal sector, like your laborers and house help and so on, and those people cannot be taxed directly. But the government still needs money to run the country, right? So what does the government do? They make everyone pay taxes indirectly. Like this stuff. All of this that I have here is what I pay the taxes indirectly to the government. Indirect taxes are added to prices of goods and services. So you pay them to the seller and the seller just hands that money over to the government. But this is where it seemingly starts to get unfair, especially for most middle-class salaried people. Let me explain with a scenario. Imagine that you have worked really hard in your life. You have studied well, beaten the competition, got a great job, and now, after finally earning well, you want to treat yourself with a nice high-end SUV. That was your dream. But when you go to buy that car, you as a middle-class person will be paying exactly the same tax as someone who was born into a rich household. Someone like a big industrialist son or a star kid, someone who never ever had to struggle. So that tax burden will be way heavier on you than on those who already already have enough wealth. And this tax extends to all the goods and services, which we all know about by GST. Other than GST, there is customs duty, stamp duty, excise duty, entertainment tax, and toll tax, and more as indirect taxes. Now, the government tries its best to be fair and bring equality to balance it out. And one way it does it is through GST tax slabs, where the broad idea of these tax slabs is that you keep essentials super cheap or tax-free, you tax normal consumption a little more, and you hit sin and luxury goods the hardest. And if you look at it from the government's perspective, it's understandable because those who are wealthy will be taxed more because they are the ones who will be buying luxury items. And the data also kind of confirms that because the top 20% bear more GST burden than the rest in the middle and the bottom. So this means there must be wealth equality at least to some extent, right? Wrong. When it comes to wealth inequality, India ranks among the highest in the world. If you look at family wealth, an average US politician is about 4 times richer than a regular family there. But in India, that gap is wide. Our politician is around 37 times richer than the average Indian family. Why? Because they just never report that income. A salaried person cannot hide. His income arrives in his bank account like a confession. Every rupee leaves a trail. But wealth does not. Wealth can sit quietly inside land, gold, shell companies, family trusts, or old properties. So if you think about it, wealthier a person, the lesser the income tax they pay, considering how much money they have. But what I still don't understand is why hide? Why is tax compliance such an issue in our country? I mean, I know there are wealthy groups in other countries and they avoid taxes too. But in India, it almost feels like tax evasion is a culture. The top 1% hold almost 40% of the nation's wealth. But the income they show, income that can be taxed, is only 3 to 4% of the wealth that they have. So where exactly did the tax evasion culture stem from? And why is it so difficult to restructure the tax laws in a way that actually brings wealth equality in India? Okay, so far we know India's tax compliance is an issue and India's tax structure is too complicated to be understood. But to be honest, if you go back in time, it's not Indira Gandhi or PM Nehru's government from where that faulty foundation started. The first time India got a proper all-India tax law was with the Income Tax Act of 1922 in the pre-independence era. And with the 1922 law, the job of handling income tax, it moved away from the provincial governments to the center, and it set the stage for a uniform national tax system. It introduced comprehensive rules for income tax. It established a clear legal framework for tax income, and most importantly, it declared governments could now change tax rates without changing the law. Now, this last feature sounds like efficiency, and it was, but it also made taxation more politically malleable because each year the budget could come with new tax rates, new exemptions, new categories without any corresponding cleanup of what came before. And you could see the effect of it in the 70s. In fact, the most dramatic chapter in Indian tax history happened in the 70s. During that time, Congress got split into two, and Indira Gandhi was busy rebuilding her political base on a promise to fight poverty and go after monopolists and big business houses. In that worldview, tax became a weapon. She literally told Parliament that taxation is a major instrument to achieve greater equality of income and wealth, and her government raised the top marginal income tax rate to 93%. And then to about 97%. But you remember this man, right? Nani Palkiwala? He wasn't happy with that and he called the budget politically clever and economically unsound. He argued that when you let the state legally take more than 90% of any extra rupee, you don't create equality. You create a society where black money is rational and honesty is self-harm. The rates went so high that evasion became almost built into the system and people started finding loopholes like underreporting their business profits in cash or keeping parallel black books. In fact, a good example of one of those built into the system is investing in agricultural land. According to the Constitution, the center cannot tax people on the profit that they earn on agricultural income. And this was mostly done for the welfare of farmers. But the rich started using it to their advantage and they started buying the lands and farmhouses as a way to evade their taxes. They would then route black money as farm income, which then entirely became tax-free. And that's also one of the reasons you could see so many celebrities officially registering themselves as agriculturalists. But after a couple of decades, in the 90s, things finally started to get better. It happened after a tax reforms committee was set up under Dr. Raja Chalaya. He recommended lower personal and corporate tax rates, fewer exemptions, and a broader base to improve tax compliance. And it did improve. Lower and simpler rates brought more honest people into the system. But over time, India's tax structure became so complex, it became difficult to navigate. You could see that complexity with indirect taxes as well. There is no better example than popcorn tax for this.
One popcorn, many taxes. Salted popcorn, caramelized popcorn, plain popcorn.
So last year, the government imposed multiple tax rates for different kinds of popcorns and the way they are sold. And people mocked the idea of that one snack could face 3 different GST rates, seeing it as a proof that GST is overcomplicated and arbitrary.
Customers believe that they are already paying a premium for malls and entertainment, and the recent decision has raised several concerns, with many considering it excessive.
The GST was supposed to make our taxes simple, but in some areas it has become more complicated.
But why I want to discuss it is because of how multi-layered it is to bring fairness in a country like India. The complexity with GST arrived because there are multiple slabs and deductions for everything. But also, if there is one single tax for any particular thing, then that would be unfair to poorer people. So the government is bound to have these multiple slabs. But now, because of these multiple slabs, there was a tug of war in courts and tribunals over what exactly popcorn sales in cinemas are. Now, popcorn is just one simple symbol of this complexity. These court disputes extend way beyond, and it's not just with GST. India's tax laws are so complex that both taxpayers and the tax department routinely disagree on the correct interpretation, and both sides litigate aggressively. And it has now become a self-reinforcing cycle. So the question remains, will the Indian middle class always pay the price for the broken tax system? I came to realize for decades, regardless of the ruling government, Indians always had quite a negative sentiment towards taxes. So I began to wonder, what sentiment do people hold when paying taxes? And if they had an opportunity to not pay, what would they do? I found this interesting survey that questioned exactly that. And according to it, ironically, Indians are okay with paying taxes. Around 41% Indians said that they regard paying taxes as a contribution to their community instead of it simply being a financial burden. And 68% of Indians said that they would never justify cheating on taxes even if the opportunity existed. Which was kind of surprising to me. Why are Indians willing to pay taxes when they don't trust the policies at all? And that was until I read the next data. 80% of respondents in India said they would be willing to pay additional taxes if the funds were actually used to support initiatives like sustainable development. And there is a term for this in economics called the dead weight loss. If I had to explain that, if the government collects tax from you and it uses that in providing public schools and public healthcare, but the quality is not good enough for you to even use that facility, then that cost that you gave to the government is dead weight, because now you will have to spend extra on private education and private healthcare. Now, if you look at Scandinavian countries, they're one of the highest tax countries in the world. Their personal income tax rates, they go up to as high as 55% of their income, which is more than half of what they're earning. But they also get the benefits that will not require them to spend anything extra, with almost free healthcare, high-quality social infra, pensions, stipend, free tuition, and subsidized housing. Now, while Scandinavian countries are doing something that seems super distant for India to achieve, let's look at Georgia, which is a closer example of the issues that we have been facing. In the late 90s, Georgia's tax system was a joke. It was super complicated, it was corrupt, it had 20 plus different taxes, and honestly, it almost made more sense to dodge it than to follow it, just like it was in India. But in the early 2000s, when new leadership took over, everything started to get simplified. They cut the number of taxes down to a few core ones, they introduced a flat 20% income tax, and they lowered and clarified other rates and shifted filing and payment online. And once the rules got simpler and enforcement actually became serious, more people moved into the formal system. And the wild part is that even with lower rates, their tax collection more or less doubled because people finally started complying instead of leaking money through loopholes and bribes. There are clear examples where countries have shown that the problem is not taxes themselves, but how those taxes are designed, collected, and spent. India does not have some built-in allergy to taxes. People are not sitting around obsessing over what rate you slapped on their popcorn. What really pisses them off is when they pay tax on everything and they still get broken roads, collapsing bridges, useless government schools, toxic air, and hospitals that are barely functioning. Then, of course they will grab any chance they get to dodge the system. What India lacks is a tax and spending system that consistently rewards their honesty. And until policy moves in that direction, the middle class will keep feeling squeezed, not because they pay tax, but because they just don't see a system that works for them in return.
Dear politicians, please explain this to me. I pay tax on the money I earn. I pay tax on the money I spend. I pay tax on the things I buy. I pay tax on the things I sell. I pay tax on the things that already been taxed from the money that was already taxed in the first place. Bhai, samajh mein nahi aa raha hai. Sir, aap ullu bana rahe? Yeah, economy is great, but the common man's struggling. The rich getting richer, but the poor man's stumbling. And all of these people gotta say only one thing: 18% is a number that's troubling. Fine, I honestly think we'd be cool if we had some roads we could drive on and use without any potholes and broken down signs. Maybe actually enforce couple rules, or maybe don't take nearly 30% of a man working hard for a salary. At least don't go take it and shove it right into your pocket to live out your fantasy. This wasn't your money, this was a way citizens could improve the locality. Your public up I had publics demanding more quality. Maybe just have a small sense of morality and know we're okay to be paying these taxes, but do what you gotta. Fix all the roads and the plumbing and gutters. Make sure every city and village has water, and every Indian should be getting insurance for health and some help with pre-medic support. Maybe invest in the sports, invest in our growth. Use all the taxes to make India soar like never before. Please use all the funding the people are paying or making them known in the world. You might think you're only one, but you have the best chance to impact with your word. You're in a position, please do not abuse it. This isn't the right way to earn. Stop this corruption, I think it's about time to give people the home they deserve.